And it looks like we are live with all zeros of the live viewers at the time. This is normally how I like to start with. Oh, here we go. Look, we already got people commenting and everything. So, okay. Hi to all of the people who have already chimed in to say hi. This is another edition, the second this week of the Cocktails and Cross Stitch show. And today I am talking to someone that I have personally followed for a long time and whose clothing line takes up quite a bit of the drawers in both our daughters and now ours as well. And I'm wearing one of them today, actually, very proudly. Sarah Adams from Wire and Honey.
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Sarah?
Good, how are you?
Good. So before we get into this week's pattern, because this is a cross-stitch pattern designing show as well, I just wanted to show on Tuesday I chatted with Steph Lomatsky, and she had picked Rupi Kaur to design, and we designed that. And then I did the pattern, and there is the finished piece. And before I close down my Instagram account over here, I just wanted to show this huge highlight for me personally was Rupi Kaur actually commenting on the cross-stitch piece that I realize that when I model these, I don't get a lot of people looking at them, but when my daughter shows them off, people flock to them. So I even got all caps and an OMG. So I was very happy with the way the pattern turned out for the last one. And there's the Wire and Honey site. So everyone go to wireandhoney.com to check out the amazing clothes there. Sarah, you also donate parts of the profits to organizations, don't you?
Yes, every month. We change organizations every month.
And I can see what it is right here, but do you want to mention what it is? Because it's a pretty topical one in the United States of America right now.
Yeah, so for this month, we're donating to Races, which provides legal aid and support to families that are being separated and detained at the border.
Yes. So there you go. If you didn't even need even more, you can see the shirts even rotating here. I'll probably end up talking about them more than you do, actually. But I do want to ask a few questions about the T-shirts later. But before we get to that, there's a reason why this week's cross-stitch pattern topic may not like the post on Instagram, and that is because who did you pick for this go-around?
I picked Artemis, and she is not a real person. Or she may have been a real person, nobody knows. But
exactly. In the realm of gods, quite the real person.
Yes.
And I was pretty excited to hear this one too, because I remembered about a month ago someone posting in Instagram stories about a podcast called, what is it? Let's Talk About Myths, Baby.
Yes. And
then as soon as you said Artemis, I clued in on me. Oh my God, is that who it is? Is this who it was? And as soon as that clicked in, I was listening to that. I listened to the Artemis one yesterday and the Heracles one yesterday. Just to get up on my Greek mythology a little bit more before we went to this. Because I also, I did take a Greek mythology course in university as well, because I was really interested in mythology and history and et cetera, et cetera. So I was so glad actually that we got to do this.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited.
Thank you for the suggestion. And so what I'll probably end up doing, normally I pull up a picture here of Artemis. I didn't do that, showing how unprepared maybe I am. So the goddess of the hunt, I believe that said. Is that right?
That is correct.
The hunt, the moon, and chastity.
Yes.
And I really like the way the story was told by the person on the podcast.
She's the best. I want to come to Canada and be her friend.
Is she in Canada?
She's Canadian.
I did not even know that. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I think she's from Toronto, but she just moved to Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
I feel like I know more about her than I probably should.
If ever she's back in Toronto. So maybe that's the person that I end up tagging with this one, because this is my vision of Artemis was very much shaped by her retelling of the story. Although I won't have the nymphs surrounding her and everything. It'll more be just her, and I'm thinking this bow that we see. This is a very muscular representation, but I, at a very basic level of cross stitching, will probably just come up with a really simple one. I did a few test patterns earlier, and this was the. I did notice there were a lot of one breast out representations as well, and I didn't do that version either. So
that's kind of odd because she was very
well.
She was very private.
Chastity, right? As the god of chastity, I decided that I would pull off something. I think this was the main one that I had used for my. So this one here, which was the. I'm not sure what. I don't know what this kind of tunic is called, but a grayish one with the bow and arrow and a belt I also have, and that's the kind of version I'm going for. The one thing that I did see as well was whether or not I would go for is it brown hair, or I saw gold hair sometimes as well, and I couldn't figure out what to go for. So I picked brown in my first version.
I think brown's good.
Okay, I'll go with brown.
So
okay, so that's what we're doing. This is the pattern. We're starting over here, but before what I'll probably do is, if anyone has any questions as well, please ask them below. I see some Newfoundland chatter and stuff as well. I don't know what that was about, but if I missed that. And Emily, yeah, it is called Let's Talk About Myths, Baby. So definitely go check out that podcast, because it is so well put together. And it's a collection of longer retellings of stories, and also, I forget what they're actually called, like the mini
myths.
Yeah,
she calls them mini myths.
Yeah,
and
mini
it's
myths.
like myths plus feminism, which is amazing.
Yeah, and the way she retells them, she is such a good storyteller as well. The problem I do is I sometimes watch it while I'm at work, and it's really hard because all of a sudden I'm like, I haven't been back to my actual work screen in a while, because I'm really into the story and like going on Wikipedia and trying to figure out what all she's talking about. So just be aware of your surroundings whenever you take this podcast in. So first, I just want to ask, I don't know if there is a big story to this, or what was behind wanting to create this clothing line that you ended up creating.
I kind of fell into it accidentally. I was teaching middle school, and I had my son, and I had to go back to work like 5 weeks after I had him. And I got really bad postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and I was teaching a challenging population, and like all of it together kind of snowballed into postpartum psychosis. And like I literally lost my mind for a little bit. So I had to stop teaching. And then like I hated just sitting at home, and not that I hated like just being a mom, but I was bored. So I wanted to do something creative. And when I started Wire and Honey, we thought it would just kind of be like a hobby. And it was more so at that point, just pop culture stuff, like trendy stuff. And then I started with one design, our vaccines design, which was something that I was passionate about. And that was a lot more rewarding for me than the pop culture stuff. And then it just kind of snowballed into what it is now, where it's just causes that I'm passionate about. And my husband, he helps out a lot, but he's passionate about as well.
Yeah. So it's the vaccine save one.
Yeah.
So that's what it started with in terms of the more
like activism.
Yeah.
Related stuff. Yeah. It started with that. And then I think the Kids for Change line was the next. and the Kids for Change line got a really amazing reaction. And then we just kind of, it was scary at first because we had a lot of trolls, a lot of hate mail.
Sure.
We were doxxed. It was really scary.
Is that right, eh?
Yeah. Wow. We had a group post like our pictures, my son's picture, our address, our phone numbers, wow, everything. But then that kind of is what motivated us. Like, we're not going to stop because people hate this. Yeah. We need to be putting these messages out there. And here
now, I mean, and feel free to also not answer this, but was there one like style of shirt that tended to bring on more kind of negative messaging than
the vaccine shirt for sure?
The vaccines, eh?
Oh yeah, even to this day, we still have a lot of hate mail because of that particular shirt.
Vaccines.
Yeah, and then after that, surprisingly, we have a shirt. I don't know if you've seen it. It's future with like princess crossed out, and then has like engineer, doctor, scientist, CEO.
Yeah.
That one also gets a ton of hate mail.
Really?
Second to the vaccines.
So vaccines is the biggie. Yeah, I took part in a campaign not even a year ago that was a pro-vaccine campaign as well, and there were people that were taking part in the campaign that were forced off of social media. Like, they deleted their accounts and they just completely, it is, I mean, and I've always spoken from the perspective of, I mean, I am a cisgendered white man. I don't get a lot of pushback when I mean, I can say things that other people will say and I don't get attacked the same way. So I'm using the exact same messages that another woman used, and she got attacked mercilessly, and I did not. I mean, I had negative messaging pushed my way for sure, but it wasn't the same level of threats and intimidation that came my way. So the vaccination story is I was reading a story today actually that again blew my mind, but
people get aggressive, like really aggressive.
Yeah. And I just thought it would be, I think I underestimated the vitriol, I suppose, of the anti-vaccine crowd, but we remain. And actually, it's something that comes up a lot when we talk about consent, because people often think that it's this opportunity to like pull the wool over your eyes, right? You're talking about consent. Well, does that mean that you don't vaccinate your kids? Like, no, it's part of the discussion that we have with our kids. There are some things that are important for their health and well-being, and for the health and well-being of those around them, that since they are well enough to be vaccinated, they will be vaccinated. But part of when it comes to consent, they think of it as some gotcha moment, but it's an opportunity to explain why we're doing this. So we involve them in a discussion around why they are vaccinated, even though the end result will be vaccination. So it's a really interesting discussion point actually for us, because we are absolutely 100% a pro-vaccine family. So it's always been, I won't even say interesting, because interesting kind of undersells how aggressively some people approach the topic. But yeah, it is it's something else. And my partner now works at the children's hospital in the city that we live in. So it's a whole other level of vaccination discussion. So very interesting that is the one that brings the anger the way that it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's the t-shirts. So you do have, is it one kid?
One kid, a little boy.
Yeah. And do you have these kind of, I mean, your shirts are so political, but in a way that is so digestible for kids as well. So do you have discussions with your kids, with your kid around what's happening in the world, or?
We do. He's very aware. I know some people think that it's wrong, like that we should kind of shield him, but I mean, not every kid it's a privilege to be able to shield your child. So we explain things in ways that are kid friendly. I mean, he doesn't understand, he's 5, so he doesn't understand the nuances of what's going on. But we don't put him in our shirts without talking to him about what the shirts are about. Yeah. So we talk a lot about consent, especially because we do have a son. So consent's really big in our house. Body rules is what we're working on right now. But yeah, I mean, he knew in the election, he knows who our president is, how we feel about him, why we feel the way we feel.
Yeah.
So we talk to him a lot. And we read a lot of books, I think, that help seal in the more complex issues. But he picks up a lot more than you would think that he would at 5.
Right. Yeah. And do you, now that I'm hearing this, I'm always on and now again, if the answer is not off the top of my head, do you have any books that you would recommend to parents to pick up to have these kind of discussions?
Oh goodness, we have so many. Right now, I really love the Marlon Bundo book. That's not about consent, but that's about, especially now with the Supreme Court shakiness that's happening here. Yep. There's a lot of fear about what will happen with like the LGBTQIA community. So Marlon Bundo is read a lot in our house. It's our son's favorite book. And that's about how love is love. We read Let's Talk About Race is a popular one here. There's a Sesame Street book that's better for young. He still likes it now at 5, but I think around 2 or 3, we started reading it a lot, called We're Different, We're the Same. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the name of the consent book, but that one's more about like good touches, bad touches.
Right. Yeah, and there are definitely lots of good consent books as well. And that's and for us, it's kind of one of the issues that we are trying to talk to our kids about is the relationship that our country has with its indigenous communities. So we're trying to explore the residential schools are something that was really big in Canada, like as recently as 20 years ago. And to talk to them about the way that our country has treated the people who were here before us, and to also not only do that from the perspective of this is what we did, but they are currently creating so much amazing art and content. And so that we're trying to consume as many Indigenous artists and writers as we can as well, to get them, reading the type of mythology that comes from the Indigenous people and the types of historical stories that come from the people who were here before us. So it's been really interesting to try and introduce things that they aren't explicitly taught in school as well. So trying to balance what the school system teaches them with our own historical interpretation of our country. So finding ways to talk, because our kids are now 6 and 8. So it's been one of the most interesting parts of parenting is trying to find that proper balance of how much we can teach them versus how much they are learning at school. So it's been one of the more exciting challenges, I suppose. Exciting may not be the right word, but like to kind of supplement, I suppose, with some of the problems that we see that we don't think are being addressed enough in certain areas. So it's similar opportunities, I suppose, for us to learn along with them, because reconciliation with Indigenous groups here in Canada is something that me and Andrea, who is my partner, are certainly taking on as some of our biggest responsibilities as parents. So, and as people ourselves, not to exclude ourselves from the reconciliation stuff. So
it's amazing. So in Canada, is your history kind of whitewashed, like the way our history is taught in schools? It's very much whitewashed.
It is. I now, again, and I don't know, without knowing the Indigenous perspective on this, it's not quite as, I mean, our Thanksgiving doesn't exactly celebrate that coming over from Europe kind of thing, but so our Thanksgiving is more a harvest-based thing than it is a moment-based thing. But there's tons of you didn't tend to learn about residential schools in textbooks, and when people did learn about it, it's but like a page worth of Canadian history, right? It's all about Confederation and post-European arrival, and even to that, post-murder and post-bringing disease over. So it really is discussed here too as more of a, it was a friendly time, a chance for us all to get to know one another time, as opposed to what it really was. So, which was a genocide of the Indigenous people in the area. So it certainly is a whitewashed view that and a lot of groups are working to improve that kind of relationship. So, and I do see someone, Nicole asked, do Canadians learn U.S. history? We have the opportunities to in our elementary school and high school system. It's brought up a little bit, but we do mostly learn about, if you just go through without taking specific courses, which come university time, you could absolutely learn about U.S. history. We do skew more towards, obviously, the Canadian history, but being a small country, we absolutely get a lot of American news as well, right? So a lot of what we see in the news is American-based stuff. So for me, who spends a lot of time on social media as well, I would say I am probably more familiar with American politics right now than I am with Canadian politics. Although in the province, so we have provinces, not states, and we just elected a Donald Trump-like figure to lead our province. So I expect our political discussions to ramp up quite a bit. There's already a lot of discussion here about recalling the sex and health education curriculum that was just implemented to make it less meaningful. So that's my really long, wordy answer to, do Canadians learn U.S. history? And I explained to Sarah that I make some really abrupt turns back towards the cross-stitch pattern, and I've been doing a lot of work over here, and I am going to go back over to this pattern. Does this look a little too like prehistoric robe thing here? I can't tell if I don't
think so. I mean, their outfits were kind of a little prehistoric looking. No,
yeah. And we're working with like little square blocks, so it's a little tricky. So I think if this is, I have to be honest, I really liked the way that I did the sandal boots. So whenever I do something that I actually like, I will gleefully look over those things. So I was very happy with that. So what I'll do then, I know that in some of them too, she had, in my test, I added some like gold bands, and then I had the arrow as well. And I had a crown. So the crown was like a flowery crown. I don't know. What do you think for a crown, or does she even need any kind of headpiece type thing?
I've seen her both ways.
Yeah.
I think Apollo wore a crown more often than she did, if I remember correctly, but
yeah,
I've seen her both ways.
Okay.
It depends, I guess, on how difficult it is to do.
Yeah. Nicole, thank you for saying one shoulder belted tunic. High five. So, yeah, it's that. I think that's pretty good. Eh?
I think so.
I'm gonna try this to start because again, I'm pretty much just copying what I had done earlier. I'm gonna start with this, and we'll see. Because what I end up doing too is often just switching the way it looks once I'm actually cross stitching it. And I added some flowers before too, so I might as well do that. Because sometimes I'll start doing it and then realize something else may definitely look better. So, okay, that's pretty good for now. Okay, I'm gonna go back to your shirts for a second, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of like? How do you select? I guess the organizations. Is it all just topical stuff? Like what? Obviously, immigration and asylum seeking is a big topic right now. So is that one of the? Is that why races would be now, or is it also stuff that you have just long supported? So you offer that support.
A little bit of both.
Right.
Races was definitely reactionary. We've done a few, like with Puerto Rico, that was reactionary. But we've also done organizations. We do a lot of local organizations. We raised money for an organization called Shoes That Fit that provides athletic shoes to children in need. And we raised enough. They're located in California, but we raised enough that they're going to come to Baltimore and provide shoes to the children in our neighborhood school.
Okay.
So it's like a little bit of organizations that are important to us. We've worked a lot with the National Meningitis Association. We've done them a few times. And then also we have a group on Facebook that has a lot of our customers in it, and we ask them for their input too. So we take suggestions, and as long as they're organizations that align with our personal beliefs.
So it's also, there is community input into even the charity. So that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we usually, like races was pretty, we knew right away that that's what we were going to do for this month. And I think our group would have unanimously voted that. But sometimes what we'll do is, like for August, if we don't have anything lined up, we'll put in the group like our suggestions and then do like a poll where they can add their own too. And then our group will vote. And I always double check on Charity Finder, Charity Navigator to make sure like has good ratings.
Oh, so so that is something that kind of, does that identify like how they use their money or?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, really cool. It doesn't work for smaller charities. It's more the big ones, but it'll give it a rating out of 5 stars, and then it'll break down like how they use their money, the pros and cons of each organization.
Yeah.
We're not like giving money to people that are just using it for like administrative fees. We'd rather it go.
Yeah. Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, I really like that community input piece actually, because I have rather selfishly always picked my own charity that the stuff that I don't have nearly the same production or sales that Wire and Honey puts out, but I've always just kind of picked my own, and I now realize I should probably ask for some community input on these kind of things as a way to support other people's interests beyond just mine. So that is a really great.
I've learned about so many charities that I wasn't aware of beforehand. So it's cool in that aspect too. Man. That there's just so many out there that if they're not Baltimore based or they're not like a big name like the ACLU, I just didn't know about.
Yeah. I've added a bow over here. I'm going to ask people for I like what Che said. Looks rad. I can barely draw. I always find it funny when people think I have artistic talent, because I actually started cross stitching because I've always wanted to have artistic talent, and I never have. And I was following a book of patterns that other people had made. And then when I wanted Black Panther pieces, and there were none, that's when I decided to create my own pattern. So for people to ever suggest that I have any artistic talent because of Artemis or something like this is always really shocking, because it was actually a complete lack of my own, not creativity, because I've always felt creative, but lack of putting the creative vision onto any type of artistic medium that's kind of prevented me. So it's funny that now that I've done cross stitch, people sometimes think of me as artistic, because that's always been so far from what I actually am. I'm going to put this question up. Look at how fancy this show is. We've got big time broadcasting chops here. Because a lot of what I do is talking about masculinity, is there anything in particular that you do with as a parent, I guess, to make sure kids are free to navigate I have 2 daughters. I'm almost 40, and I still have a hard time kind of navigating masculinity. I can't imagine how difficult it must be, in all honesty, to be raising boys. Not to be caring. I think that raising caring and empathetic boys is something that good humans do, but I don't think that we have the same support for boys who want to do more traditionally feminine things than we do, say, a girl who would be doing things that are more traditionally masculine. I mean, I don't think there's the same pushback on a girl wearing a Superman shirt that there would be on a boy that wants to wear a dress, right? So what are some of the things that you have to be mindful of when raising a boy in 2000, and I think we're in 2018, but yeah. I honestly have no idea anymore.
It's the older he gets, the harder it is because of the outside influences.
Yeah.
We try to be really cognizant of nurturing his interests and just letting him be authentic. He happens to be a very sensitive and empathetic, artistic type of kid. So he isn't, generally speaking, like stereotypically, he's not a very masculine boy. He loves to go get pedicures with me. We get pedicures pretty regularly. He likes getting his nails painted. But now he's starting to get to the age where people, not just kids, like adults, make comments about his nails being painted. Even the ones that we've found have been kind of supportive about him going and us painting his nails will make comments like, if it's not blue, because last time he alternated like blue and pink nails. And we get kind of he gets a lot of comments. We have had a lot of comments like, we're going to make him gay because that's how that works.
Yeah.
Like it would be a problem if he was.
Yeah, exactly.
Or kind of like a lot of like, oh, you're so brave. Like I could never let my son do that type of comments, which is, I mean, it's not brave. He's getting his nails painted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
So he does. Right now he's really into Barbie, the Barbie show.
Yeah.
When Beauty and the Beast came out, he's really into dress up. When like the live action Beauty and the Beast came out, he wanted to dress up to go see it. And like my own like innate gender roles that I'm used to. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, we'll get you a beast costume and I'll get a Belle costume. And he was like, no, mommy, like, I want to be Beauty.
Yeah.
You're the Beast. So we did. I went out and bought him a dress and a crown, and I dressed up as Beast, and we went to the movie. And we just try really hard to let him be himself. If he cries, we tell him it's okay to cry. We just try to nurture who he is. But as he gets older, next year especially, he's going into kindergarten, and I think it's going to be a lot more of a challenge to navigate the outside influence.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and that to me, I'll be completely upfront. Of all of this is about, I don't know, 8 cocktails and cross stitches. That story that you were just telling, which was just a retelling of a young boy's life, was about as deep breath sigh like as I've ever been on this show, because it is just so sad how unable some adults are to accept kids for things that they like to do. And I don't think I was particularly, it's hard to tell now because I'm getting so much older, but I don't remember ever being told not to do certain things. But now that I'm the age I am, I have started to reevaluate why I do certain things. And I think that our kids are now are going into grade 1 and 4, and it is the same for us. It's amazing how much outside influence you live with them for so long, being their sole, well, not the sole, but their main influencer by far. And then suddenly they're at school with friends and parents of friends. And I remember it was in junior kindergarten when we started hearing the blue is for boys, pink is for girls and everything. And it was like, it not once in our entire parenting had that ever been said. And then it comes home, and you start to realize that there are things that you haven't even prepared to speak about because you've just forgotten that adults will, without question, start telling 5-year-old kids these things. And it's normal for them to do it. They have no reservation about doing it. And it's, because the discussion about masculinity and raising boys has become, for me, even though I'm not raising boys, the most important part of the work or discussions that I do, because I am a pretty firm believer that we fail young boys in the way that we allow them to do things, not so much on an individual level, but on a societal level.
I 100% agree.
It's just so, like, more than it, like, honestly, it's sad. It's really awful. And I think that kind of way that we shut them off from feelings obviously manifests itself in a lot of really disturbing ways down the road. And I mean, not to get into regional politics or global politics, but some of the videos I see from Trump campaigns of 4 and 5-year-old kids, and the stuff that they say is just mind-boggling, that there are parents who would raise kids to think that way. And it's so bad. it's so hurtful to hear, not just for that individual kid, but for the people around them as well, who those attitudes will go on to impact and affect. So
yeah, I agree. But there also have been, I think lately, a lot more male influencers, such as yourself, or I know Justin Baldoni has been really big on speaking out about toxic masculinity. So I think now there's more tension than there's ever been from men fighting back against it, which I think hopefully that'll gain some more momentum.
Yeah, Justin Baldoni has been one of the people that I've been following for sure as well. Wade Davis as well, as somebody who I was on a panel with actually at an event, and he is unbelievable. As a former football player as well, he has such an amazing point of view on masculinity and kids today. And so he is another person that I've really started to follow. And thank you, Dominique, also for chiming in on the kind of outside influences discussion, because again, it is something that I personally wasn't prepared for, the amount of feedback that they would be getting from kids around them. And it was a parenting challenge that not that I wasn't expecting, but that I wasn't expecting as quickly or aggressively as it ended up presenting itself. So, so how does this look again then? Now that I'm looking at this Artemis, I keep looking at this one thing, and I'm going to put that piece of hair right there. And what do you think?
I think she looks amazing.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm going to go with. This is what I'm going to use as my guide as I put this together. And then if something changes, I'll make that change on the fly. But I think I should probably then, knowing that I already have a cheater chart called Artemis Live. I once went through a whole one of these and closed it down, and then realized I never saved it, and so I had to redesign it the next day. But here's Artemis, so we did it. So before leaving as well and signing off from here, the other thing that I do is try to offer you, or the bow looks a bit small. Tarek is always coming in on the bows. It does look a bit small, though. He's right. So I wanted to offer anyone who would like the chance to ask me anything about masculinity or my own views on stuff, I suppose. So I want to make sure that it's not just me asking questions, that other people get the opportunity as well. So Sarah, feel free if you have any questions about anything that I do. Basically, this is your turn to put me on the spot as opposed to me asking you questions. So it's also okay for there to be no questions.
Yeah, no, obviously I love what you do. I don't have little girls, but a lot of what you say relates to parents that have little boys too. Like your post today about if we're teaching our daughters to shatter glass ceilings, it's really important for us to teach our sons that those ceilings don't belong to them.
Yeah.
So I don't have any questions per se, but it's really nice from a boy mom perspective to read these things. Even being a woman, it's different being a woman and fighting it yourself, and then raising a boy to also fight it. So it's really refreshing to have a male perspective on just masculinity, and it keeps me in check.
Yeah, and that one itself, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Kimmel, but Michael Kimmel does write about masculinity and boyhood a lot, and that kind of glass ceiling discussion comment is based on a story that he tells a lot about how he was with a group of his grad students, I believe it was, or he was on a panel, and the discussion was him and a bunch of other men talking about how women are coming into like these executive positions and starting to take their jobs, and his question was simply, what makes you think they're your jobs? And it's such a simple way of prefacing such a magnificently large issue, right? And it is this entitlement aspect that and this is a lot when I speak. I try to talk about biases that you don't even know that you have. And one of the things is you simply expect that you will get jobs and you will have all of it. And it's not something that everyone experiences, and that you have to be able to openly evaluate. It doesn't have to say that you are like, yeah, you know what, I don't want jobs, I don't want any of this. But it's to say that you do have fewer obstacles on your path from point of birth to, you know, going through school to getting a job. It's not saying that it's easy for you, but it's saying there are fewer obstacles to it. And then that those fewer obstacles can lead to a sense of entitlement that is exactly what. So we do talk so much about glass ceilings without talking about how men also need to kind of play a role in this by not assuming that all of this stuff is theirs to begin with, because it's not. And those discussions are important ones to have, I think, with everybody.
My husband's really, he has like a lot of the same discussions. He's in the tech field, and it's very much a man's world.
Right.
He's been really, his big push from like an activism point, from Wire and Honey and the charities we support, and we have a shirt for it, like include women, include girls, is to get more women, more girls into programming, and especially women and girls of color into programming. It's very much a man's world, very much a white man's world.
Sure. Yeah. I did. So Rufus had a question earlier. I'm sorry, Rufus, that I did miss this. So again, around the word feminist in particular. So he had mentioned that their 18-month-old daughter wears the feminist shirt and gets negative reactions, as he said. Do you? We talked a little bit earlier about the stuff that you get pushback about, but do you get general pushback about the word feminist, or at this point?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think a lot of it's just misunderstanding. I think people just don't understand what feminism is. I mean, really all it is women and men should have equal rights. It's just about equity. And so I don't really understand how anyone would be opposed to equity, but we definitely get a lot of pushback. But I think I think again, it's because of that toxic masculinity, and I mean, I've had my own personal, not struggle, but battle with the word, but for me, it's not about. For me, it's not about whether the word is good or bad. It's whether or not, as a man, I should be using it to describe myself. So I've gone back and forth. 100% should.
No, I know, and it's. So I've gone back before. I like being called a feminist, but I prefer, if other people identify me as that, should I call myself a feminist ally? It's the how do. I don't want to. I think the time that I felt best about my own personal use of the word was finding the phrase that I have used an awful lot, which is, men don't need to be given a space in feminism. They need to take their spaces and make them feminist. And once I heard that, it kind of gave me the opportunity to say, you know, that is exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for, which is, and it became so much more clear when you hear people trying to blame locker room talk for, you know, toxic masculinity and for these abusive, aggressive, harassing messages, to say, okay, if that's what's happening in locker rooms, then where am I, the man who's in those locker rooms, and how can I be impacting the discussions that take place there? So I never wanted to call myself that at the expense of a lot of the education I've had from feminists, or to try to present myself as a better man because I call myself a feminist. To me, a lot of it has been around making sure that if I'm going to use that term, I better be acting the term as well. So that's been my own personal discussion.
I get that.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too, just from the sense of there's a lot of criticism that feminism as a whole is white. Like
right.
it's white feminism, and it's kind of like that. Like you don't want to call yourself like an intersectional feminist, but you want to practice intersectional feminism.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, I know you have your cis male privilege. I have my white privilege, my middle class privilege, and you kind of have to navigate that to use that privilege for good and not just work to better things for yourself, but make sure that you're fighting for like everybody.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And those are the things that certainly, I mean, the intersectionality of everything has been, I think I'm wearing your intersectional feminism shirt right now. So, I mean, it is such a massive part in all of this. And as someone who, again, does experience the privilege I do have, it's also being open, for me, to being open to criticism and to being open to understanding that some of the things that I do will be mistakes, and that instead of getting offended when I make them, to kind of learn from them instead, and that is a far better way to move forward than to sit back and say, what do you know? I'm doing great things. Look at all of the money I've donated. Right? So
it's hard.
It is really hard.
I think we kind of all do that. It's something I work towards. Like falling back on like my white fragility. Like, how dare you? Like I'm trying here. Like, my intentions were good, and it's hard to kind of take a step back and say like, okay, like I need to just shut up, listen to what's being said to me, and process it and learn from it. But it is hard to, like, because your first, I think, reaction as a human is to be defensive.
Yep.
And sometimes even when we're trying really hard to do good things, like I screw up a lot. And I'm really lucky that my customer base feels comfortable telling me when I screw up, because when I screw up, it's really public, which makes it even more mortifying. But I mean, I'm human, and I try to own up to my mistakes and grow, and I'm just always learning. But I think we're all at least a little bit problematic, and sometimes we're more problematic than we'd like to be.
Yeah. I've had to actually almost implement procedures for when I am, for when people do basically educate me. It's to not, it's almost to basically throw my keyboard away or throw my phone away and do not answer things immediately, but at least sit there and take time to evaluate the experience that they probably have with an issue versus the complete lack of experience that I might have with it. Because again, I'm also human. My first reaction is always, no. I did this to be a good person. Why are you yelling at me for it?
Or like wanting a cookie sometimes. Like I struggle with that. That's something I struggle with. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's like, I'm like, look at these white people. Like, look what I'm doing. And then it's like, holy, like, wow, that's some, my privilege is showing there.
Exactly.
And it's hard. I don't know if you've read, was it Let's Talk About Race? Is that what it is? Now I'm blanking. I just recently read it. One of the most eye-opening books. Or So You Want to Talk About Race. That's what it is. It's one of the most, it's a quick read. It's amazing. It's really helped a lot with like introspection, and So You Want to Talk About Race. It's amazing.
Is that a newer book? I've definitely. Oh yeah.
It's one of the best books I've read.
Yeah, so a 2018 book. Okay, well I'm gonna buy that one then. So there.
And then if I can also plug, I've been taking a course from, I don't know if you've heard of Momademics. She's a woman of color who puts on a course for parents that are raising activists. And then she also has a course, which would probably apply more for like the US, but
what's it called? Like Momademics or?
Momademics, M-A-M-A Demics, like D-E-M-I-C-S. Yes. So she has a course on raising activists, and then she also has a course on incorporating African American history, Black history into everyday life. Because here in America, at least, a lot of our Black history is limited to the month of February or about racism. Yeah. And she has some really amazing courses that's it. The Raising an Advocate, Checking Your Own Prejudice course.
Yeah, I'm gonna put links to all of this then in the comment thread for this video, so that if anyone wants to go, looks like Nicole has already done the Momademics for me, so I don't. So I will add also So You Want to Talk About Race, and I'm gonna add your store as well for people who want to go check that out. I guess we in the next 3 minutes before it's been 1 hour. Did you happened to get more tattoos today, didn't you?
I did.
Yes, and I think I saw somewhere that it was a cat-based one. Is this correct?
Yeah, I have 2 hairless cats.
Right.
So I got a hairless cat. It's I have like a thing on it, and
of course.
It's like melting right now, so it kind of just looks like it's just covered in soy sauce. But it's really pretty when it's.
Have you had that before? There was my last tattoos that I got, the Wonder Woman one and the R2D2 one, that they put that kind of second skinish thing on it or something. Do you like it?
I love it.
You do, eh?
Yeah. So the one I got before this one is the first time that I've ever used this. Like all my other tattoos have been like Aquaphor and Lubriderm. Yeah. My last one healed so much better. It didn't peel as much. It didn't itch as much. It's awesome. The only downside is it looks like there's soy sauce pooled.
Yeah, I think that's what I had a hard time with. and that I still had some leg hair in the areas where it had been put on.
Pulled it off.
And that did not feel wonderful. But that was the first time. The last time that I got one was the first time that I've ever had that applied. And so I was, when it first went on, I was like, this is amazing. I love this stuff. And then I went to show my kids for the first time, and like, that looks awful. Maybe you girls want to look away for a little bit. But yeah, that's very interesting then. That seems to be
like the newer.
Yeah. Seems to be moving around. A lot of people getting that added to tattoos. So, I want to say thank you for a whole bunch of things, for the activism that you do, for the discussion tonight, because I feel we're coming from similar places of trying to always learn, trying to be active, but trying to understand that there are always ways that we can improve as well. And I want to, this is on a lighter note, thank you for exposing me to probably the best Golden Girls image I've ever seen, which was the Batgirl and whatever your cover photo is. I had never seen that image before, and 20 minutes before this show started, I see this, and then I'm supposed to recover in time to do the show after coming across the most amazing Golden Girls image that I have ever seen in my life. So.
Pretty amazing. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for my Golden Girls cross stitch.
Yes, that was one of my all-time favorite trade swaps. So
oh my God, I can't wait to hang them. They're amazing.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who chimed in tonight with questions or comments, or people who just shared stuff, links like Nicole. I will make sure also to share the finished Artemis once I've been able to put it together. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks,
All right.
Sarah.
Thank you. Bye.